We are live, back with another Boilers in the Stands. Today, we are going to do part two of our early-ish offseason Big Ten preview. We'll be hitting on Michigan State, Maryland, and Minnesota. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers. And we are also have our guest on, Carter Elliot of Sleepers Media today. He's going to come on and talk about Michigan State as that's who he covers. So appreciate you coming on, Carter.
I appreciate you having me on. I'm trying to get my bearings right now because I was watching that Mackey introduction and I got real bad issues seeing Mackey and it messes with my psyche. So I'm refocusing right now. But thanks for having me up.
No, as soon as that started playing, I was thinking back to you and Greg sitting there for that game, and I was like, man, he's probably having flashbacks right now.
Yeah, man, that place it's nothing like you can talk about it, but you really actually got to be there to actually feel what it's like. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You were there. Were you there for the MSU game?
Yeah, I was there for the MSU game when Edie was flirting with 40. I think 38 he finished with. And then I was there when you guys cut down the nets, too, for the Big Ten. You guys beat Illinois. So, yeah, it was both crazy environments.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that Michigan State one was one of the louder ones of the year for sure. But these are two teams. We're talking about Purdue, Michigan State. We're going to focus on Michigan State first. Two teams that are projected to be, top 5 teams in the country, top 2 in the Big Ten. Pretty consensus, whether you have 1 or 2, whatever order. But Carter, what are just your kind of thoughts going into the season? Thoughts on the ending of last year? Michigan State gets another Sweet 16 appearance, loses in a probably was my game of the tournament, the OT thriller to Kansas State. Or you're just kind of overall thoughts heading into next year for MSU?
Yeah, I heading into next year, it's kind of a different feel than it has been these past couple years, just as far as from a Michigan State fan base standpoint. Typically we come in with, such big expectations about what a Tom Izzo team is going to do. And just to keep it pretty frank and honest, these last couple years, expectations have been a little bit lower based on the roster and kind of what we have in the fold. So last year, I was just like, okay, we're not going to be that deep. We're going to have question marks at center. Let's see kind of how far, Tyson Walker, AJ Hogarth, the backcourt can get us, basically, and, Jay Nakins. And, all in all, if you would have told me that we were going to the Sweet 16 at the start of the next season, I would have been like, I'm honestly, frankly, surprised. So for us to get to that point, and obviously, once you get there, you want to win that game. There are some things in that Kansas State game I thought we could have done differently to maybe come out on top. But, I mean, obviously a great game. But coming into this year, expectations are, sky high. I mean, we're looking at preseason things and videos that Michigan State's men's basketball team's releasing, and they already got Final Four banners posted up on the TV. So, that's kind of the mindset for this team coming into this year. And, with how the roster is making up and what we have coming back, it's not out of the question to kind of have that high standard.
Yeah, for sure.
And in terms of real quick, Joe, just jumping here right away, when we set out to do these preview shows, didn't know how many people would tune in, being middle of the summer and college basketball being several months away. But after the last show, I think after 24 hours, we cleared 1,000 views still on that show pretty easily across all platforms. So those of you that are in right now, if you'd smash that like button and do all that good stuff to have that pop up across other people's streams, that would be great. Carter, I got to say, you talking about Michigan State fans and just their feel. 2 years ago, I went up there for the Purdue-Michigan State game, went out afterwards. There were people wearing Michigan State jerseys that didn't go to the game, didn't even know that Michigan State had won. And I was like, what is going on here? I've been in that environment when they're super hyped about their team, and it seemed like everybody was like blasé about the team. And last year was a little bit different, but still just didn't have that. I've got lots of Michigan State friends. It's a land-grant college, so lots of people in the ag community up in Michigan graduated from that college, and they just haven't seemed hyped about it. And talking to them this year, they seem really hyped about it. With all that expectation there, I guess, where do you see the biggest jump? Because I look across this roster and I'm like, man, most of those, there's not a lot of freshman to sophomore jump. There is in the front court some, but this team wasn't thought of in this regard going into last year, and coming into this year with a lot of those guys having been on the team last year. Where do you see that jump coming from that propels this team to a top 5 type preseason ranking?
Yes. Well, outside of the guys that we got coming back, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that people kind of hold this Michigan State team in high expectations and regards is the fact that we're going to have some more depth moving forward. Last season we've had guys like Pierre Brooks kind of move on, and he's at Butler now, but there wasn't really any type of bench presence at all. And as far as Michigan State, we were one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country, top 10 percentage wise. But when we got to the rim, we struggled. There was nothing really inside the paint. We had all below the rim players. One of the best athletes on the team last year was Malik Hall, and he was hindered by foot injuries, and Jay Nakins being a great athlete as well, but he was also hindered by injuries as well. But this team just has a little bit more depth and a little bit more get out, run, Tom Izzo type teams, getting out in transition, getting above the rim. You got the Cohen Cars coming in. You got Xavier Bookers, Jeremy Fears, all guys that are able to, have some athleticism that's been lacking, I think, in these past couple of years. I mean, I think Cohen Carr's probably going to be the best athlete at Michigan State since Miles Bridges. There's also some murmurs that he actually might be more athletic as far as vertically leaping than Miles Bridges. Mm-hmm. So it's an exciting thing to have. And I think it gives Coach Izzo a lot more tools in his tool bag. Luckily for us, we had Joey Hauser and Tyson Walker, who were literally the face of consistency the whole entire year. But if those guys did have a bad game, we couldn't look to the bench. There wasn't really much there. I think this year there's more things that Coach Izzo can do. The lineups can be different. And I think that's kind of what gives it more of an exciting feel. The fact that, there is some more athleticism with this team.
Yeah, for sure. This is a team, like you said, the freshmen they're bringing in, Xavier Booker, Jeremy Fears, Cohen Carr, even Garrick Norman, although I don't think he'll get too much run. Bring those four in. They only lose Joey Hauser and Pierre Brooks, although I think the Joey Hauser loss is being not talked about quite enough. I think that one's a pretty big loss. 27th in offense.
It's massive.
Oh, yeah. 46% on 167 threes. That's insane. Wow. MSU was 27th in offense, 42nd in defense. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and when you look at the advanced metrics, Hauser was ranked first for Michigan State across basically all the advanced metrics, whether it's win shares, plus minus, whatever, across the board. So, yeah, I too just kind of think that's overlooked a little bit. But
our best rebounder too, as well. Last year, statistically, he was.
Yeah. I think you mentioned you bring the rim pressure, and that was one of the key things I wanted to hit on. You look up on Synergy, they were 30th percentile in finishing at the rim at 1.13 points per possession, and they had the 15th fewest rim attempts in the entire country. Just a team, that lives in the mid range, lives on jumpers. But when you got Joey Hauser, when you got Tyson Walker, even Hogard was respectable as shooter at 33%. Hall had a little bit of a down year. Akins was over 40%. You got all these guys. They were third in 3-point percentage in the country, MSU. Is there any concern that, as I'm a stats guy, I'm a numbers guy, is there any concern of a little bit of regression on the shooting fronts and say they're not, they don't hit 39%, they're hitting 36, 37% from three. And now that's an issue for a couple of close games.
Yeah, I definitely think it's an issue as far as, especially when you mention the loss of Joey Hauser. I feel like that's just very much glazed over. I know people inside the Michigan State program and fan base and, donors and things like that did everything in their power to convince Joey to come back. But he's obviously ready for the next step in his basketball career. But I think what we're going to sacrifice maybe in a couple of percentage points wise at 3-point range, I think it'll pick up a little bit, being able to put more pressure on the rim. I think a lot of the 3-pointers that we had last year, though they were kind of off driving and kicking, they weren't necessarily that open. Tyson Walker hit some contested threes. Joey Hauser having the size to hit, contested threes as well. But the fact that we'll be able to put a little bit more pressure on the rim, I think will hopefully open up things on the perimeter a little bit more. The only true thing that I think Michigan State lacks is being able to throw the ball into the post. And I don't think we're going to have that this year at all again, which is kind of strange to think of, Tom Izzo teams not having post presence to throw it down low. But I still think the ability to put pressure on the rim will hopefully open up things more, offensively. And I don't foresee these guys just taking a huge regression 3-point wise. If anything, I think they stay the same. And you might even see some players maybe even go up. Hogard has shown a progression throughout his career. from the 3-point line, where he's, somewhat respectable from out there now. So I think that the guys will be able to continue to put pressure on the defense and, knock down enough shots. And if not, having that athleticism, it'll give us another option to attack the rim and put more pressure on the rim.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that we do on this preview show is talk about the new guys. It's kind of our way to update Purdue fans on the teams we're going to face, or Big Ten fans in general, of who's new. And one of the interesting things to me about this Michigan State team is this is one of the few teams in the country that probably didn't add a transfer across the entire country, right? But you bring in some really highly ranked freshmen, Xavier Booker being the utmost in terms of being ranked 13th. I guess, what have you seen from him in terms of film, or have you seen him live? Like, what type of player do you compare him to from past Michigan State teams? What's he going to add to this group?
Yeah, I really don't think that, at least in my, off the top of my head, in my knowledge, Michigan State's really had a Xavier Booker type player. I mean, measurable wise, he's just oozing with potential. And that's I think that's a big word with him. Obviously, he was able to produce on high school level and the grassroots level, but from the most times I've seen him and the people that I've talked to, they say he has another gear that hasn't necessarily been unlocked yet. And if there is a coach that I think can unlock that gear in the country, it is a coach like Tom Izzo. So him having that coaching from Izzo, him being able to get on a weight program as well to play physically in the Big Ten. I mean, all of us know what it's like to play, or, what people have to go through, what these players have to go through playing down low in the Big Ten. So you can't just come in there and, not be strong, not play strong on the post. So, he just has so much talent and tools that I think that he can continue to get better throughout his Michigan State career. And it's got to a point where I don't think enough people are talking about Xavier Booker, to be honest with you.
Right.
It seems that whenever you talk about Michigan State freshmen, and this is no slight to those guys, people kind of bring up Jeremy Fears first or Cone Carr first. And those guys are going to be really good. Don't get me wrong. But Xavier Booker was a top 10 player in high school basketball for a reason. Like, he's got a lot of game. There's some steps he needs to take physically, I think, but let's not get it twisted. I think he could come in right now on this Michigan State team and give you something offensively, especially at the center spot, which I think we lack an offensive punch. He's right now, just walking on the campus, he's our best offensive option at center. So I'm very excited to see how he's utilized and how he progresses. I know he's already on campus right now, up with the team. Seems he has a good rapport also with Jeremy Fears as well. So very excited to see kind of how he's utilized. And I always ask myself the question, like, when I get towards the end of the season, what do I want like Michigan State's lineup to look like? And the last time I answered that question, it looks like Xavier Booker being our starting 5-man. So hopefully we get to that point. Who knows? Obviously, there's going to be some defensive liabilities, I think, in that lineup. But what he can do offensively, I think, will kind of balance that out.
Is he going to play with his back to the basket much at all, or is not really that kind of center?
I don't think he's that kind of center. I don't think he's necessarily like throw him in the block and, kind of go back somebody down 3 crab dribbles and power up for a layup. I think he's going to be more so of it depends who's guarding him. Like, you put a Zach Edey on him, for example. So, obviously we got to bring that up. I would want Xavier to kind of pull Zach out a little bit. I don't want him to try to back Zach down. That would kind of bring a chuckle to my eyes, or bring a chuckle to me. But I think that he kind of just needs to be able to learn who's guarding him, what's the best way to attack it. I don't think he's a Jaren Jackson type player, but I will say this: when Jaren did play at Michigan State, he got a lot better, especially towards Big Ten play, and realizing who was guarding him. When he had bigger centers, he kind of worked in the mid post, using his quickness. So when he had smaller players on him, he did a great job of sealing and kind of going down there and laying the ball up. So, Raphael, come on, man. I see the comment about it. You got me on that one. But I think that he'll be able to keep people off guard, and the ceiling for him is crazy. It's exciting to think about. So I think it's going to be special to see what he does this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's the 3rd highest ranked recruit under Izzo in history. Like, there's a reason that he's ranked that high. I think you nailed all of it. The other gears, I think, definitely there. I think at times he wasn't super engaged. But also he's so talented that like he didn't need to in high school.
Yeah,
like,
you know what high school kid? High school kids nowadays aren't engaged? It's very rare. That's why guys get so excited when you get a kid that comes in and has a different type mindset. It's because the younger kids. I sound old right now. I'm only 30. But the younger kids, they got a little like cruise control to them a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to talk about another freshman. One you mentioned that you think will probably have the best, and I think probably slots in the best for MSU specifically this season in Cohen Carr. Just an absolute freak. He's throwing down East Bays in the game. He's throw up any lob to him, he's going to dunk it. He won the high school dunk contest. I think he's a perfect fit as this kind of 3-4 slasher. He didn't shoot a ton at Legacy Early College, but just to do that, he seemed comfortable attacking closeout, which I think is big. He seemed comfortable being like the secondary rim protector. And then obviously just being somebody, we mentioned the lack of rim pressure and lack of finishing at the rim, just somebody that can absolutely just get to the rim. Once he's in the paints, he's crafty. He can kind of get, some interesting finishes around there or just dunk on somebody. But what are your kind of thoughts on him? Just heading in from all the highlights you've seen, the games you've seen, anything like that?
Yeah, I think that he's a player who a lot of fans are excited about for a multitude of reasons. One, just like you said, the fact that he is able to bring that athleticism to this team that's been lacking greatly, and some of the dunks that he throws down are absolutely insane. And it's not just in transition either. I mean, scoring in transition is an art form. He's not just leaking out and getting layups. He's getting out. He's running the lane hard. He's rebounding the ball, outletting, getting out, and getting easy baskets for himself. And I think that Michigan State is excited for him because not only is he going to be able to bring like that athleticism, but he's going to be able to bring that energy to the team. I think that's why maybe people bring him up before they bring up Xavier Booker, because I think Cohen is on a different level physically. I mean, right now he is physically ready to play in the Big Ten. And I think he can affect the game defensively right now with his energy and rebounding and all that. And I always bring this up when I talk about him. I love high school kids that have that trajectory of they started out their high school career, maybe a low 4-star or not even a top 100, and they've done nothing but get better and better and better. And that's what he's done. And he's not doing it at some, just run-of-the-mill high school either. He's playing for Legacy. They play in the NIBC, which is a very competitive, one of the best high school basketball leagues. I mean, you have the Montverts in that league and everything like that. So he's a guy who I think there's a clear role for him with this Michigan State team as well. I think that you could do some certain different things with him, maybe even do a small ball 5 situation. Who knows? There's possibilities with him that I think makes it exciting to see like what his role ends up being with this team.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, he just looks like an MSU guy. And I was talking to Joe last show. Like, it's funny going through all these videos, watching for each team. And it's like, oh, that guy fits for this coach. That guy fits for this coach. And him and Fears both. I thought, like, as soon as the tape started playing, I was like, that's a Tom Izzo guy. Like, that's a Tom Izzo dude, and just big and physical. Looks like he's ready to go right away. Maybe to me a little bit right now, just from watching some of the film, like more of a straight line driver than a guy that's going to like juke a little bit and make a guy miss and make a second move and get to the rim. But big time athlete, big time dunker. And just to me, looks like a Michigan State guy. You mentioned Miles Bridges earlier. I put my comp for him down as Miles Bridges. I actually put my comp for Xavier Booker as Jaren Jackson Jr., even though I think they're a little bit different, but I think just in some ways they're similar. So I thought it was funny that you kind of brought him up for a second there with Xavier also. But we got one more guy that's a big time recruit, not to take anything away from the 4th recruit in this class, but Jeremy Fears seems like a really physical point guard that makes really good reads, makes really good passes. Looks like a guy body type wise in terms of just his build, in terms of his mass, that might be ready to go too. But are there minutes on this team for him this year? Is he going to fit in anywhere this year as a 6-foot point guard type player with the 3 guards? And depending on how you classify Akins, but with those 3 guys, Walker, Hogard, and Akins on the floor, is there a spot for Fears to get significant minutes this year?
I don't know if it's going to be significant minutes. I think a lot of that's going to be dependent. I think that obviously you mentioned Jeremy Fears is the future Michigan State point guard. He's the next guy in line. He is the extension of Tom Izzo on the court. When I talk to, a lot of coaches who have seen him play, the first thing they say to me is like, this is a Tom Izzo point guard. Like when Coach Izzo gets a hold of him, there's going to be the extension of Coach Izzo on the floor. He's going to do great things. He's going to be a fan favorite, all that. I even see a world where Jeremy Fears is an NBA player and makes it to the next level. I truly believe that. And he's a winner too. I mean, he's done nothing but win. He's a gold medalist for Team USA. He's very successful at the EYBL, very successful at La Lu, very successful going back to play in Chicago with his brother. He's just a very, very good player. And I just find a hard time not really finding minutes for him. There's going to be some significant minutes for him. And as I stated earlier, the fact that he has a player like Jeremy Fears he can bring in, it puts pressure on guys like AJ Hogarth to play to a certain level. And it puts pressure on guys like Tyson Walker to play to a certain level, because last year they're not really feeling that pressure. If they weren't playing necessarily well, we try to put Trey Holloman in, and I don't necessarily think Trey was ready to play right away yet. So for the flashes that he had, I think there is a world where Jeremy Fears is going to force his way onto the floor with his play. And it makes sure that guys like AJ and other, backcourt members on this team stay locked in.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you guys said. I'm curious if it's going to be limited minutes. We most likely think probably 10 to 12 or something like that. I'm interested to see if in his minutes, especially if he's running maybe with like a car, kind of off the bench or whatever, if the pace picks up a bit. It was 306th last year for MSU, which was their slowest since 2017. At least when I think MSU, and I'm a little bit newer for, I haven't watched college basketball for like decades or anything, but when I think MSU, I think of a more up-tempo offense. You think they get back to that at all, or you think it's going to be a little bit more methodical again?
I think it'll be higher just because of the personnel that we'll have on the floor. We didn't have the opportunity to do that last year. When I say we were below the rim team, we were about as below the rim got. Jaden Akins was a pretty big time athlete, but he's also 6'2". So we're just going to have a different type of athleticism on the team this year, and kind of get out and run. And especially it's going to be great in the Breslin, like getting out and running that first cone card dunk and the crowd's getting crazy. It'll give something to get excited about. So I definitely think they'll be better kind of athletically at the rim. But with the personnel we had last year, it just didn't really work out like that.
Yeah, for sure. So we don't want to take up too much more of your time. We just have one last question before you get out of here. Just one we're going to do for all the teams. But what would you say the floor and the ceiling is for MSU in terms of the Big Ten, and then maybe, a postseason run as well? What would you say that is?
I mean, the ceiling for this team is definitely Big Ten title. Like that's definitely the ceiling. Floor in the Big Ten. I mean, I feel bad even saying 4 is the floor. I'd be disappointed if we finished 4th in the Big Ten this year, to be honest. But I'll go ahead and say 4. Expectations ceiling wise for just in general for the tournament, I think is a Final Four. I think Final Four is what we have our eyes, or what the team has their eyes set on. If we don't make it past the Sweet 16, I honestly think it'd be a disappointment with the talent that this team has. I think they're primed to make a run. I'm glad you guys didn't force me to say what my Big Ten rankings are right now, because I know we've been talking on the side, and I know I've on record saying that I'm still giving it to Purdue because they're the big dogs until someone knocks the big dogs off. But just let it be known that Michigan State's coming this year. We retooled, and we're going to be ready. It's going to be different. But I think the expectation is to win a Big Ten title for sure.
Yeah, 100%. My ceiling is 1. Floor. My floor might be 5th, just because I'm a little bit higher on some of those other teams. But I think I would be shocked if they aren't top.
If we finish 5th, I'm going to be in distress. Big distress.
I actually had the same floor and ceiling as you, Joe. Just Ohio State, Illinois, Maryland. I think all 3 of those teams could potentially, in some world, depending on how schedules break out and everything, slide one way or the other. But, for me, it's Michigan State and Purdue. But if I have to do a floor and a ceiling, I go no lower than 5. And obviously, winning the Big Ten would be my ceiling. And then I said same thing, Final Four. In terms of ceiling, postseason, my floor was Sweet 16. Unless they just get some crazy matchup in the second round against some mid-major that has a dominant 7-footer. which I don't think will happen.
I'll have to
I don't
now.
think that'll
Now I'm going
happen.
to have to do some research after this to see what the non-Power 5 centers are looking like across the country.
There you go. So, all right, we appreciate you coming on, Carter. Let the people know where they can find you and your stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Carter Elliot with 2 underscores after that, 2 L's and 2 T's on Elliot. And you can find my podcast stuff at Sleepers Media. I do a lot of Big Ten stuff with my co-host Greg Waddell. We do cool things around the Big Ten. Did a road show last year, so I got a lot of content on there you guys can check out. And appreciate you guys having me on.
Are you on the new app? Did you join
on
the new
Thread?
app?
Yes, I did, because I'm very impressionable, and I saw everyone else joining Threads, and I was like, I'm not.
I couldn't find you on there. I tried to tag you on there yesterday, and I was like, I can't find him. I don't know where he is.
Yeah, I got to figure it out. It's still very confusing. I put half of my life into Twitter, and now Threads just comes out of nowhere. It's not very fair.
Yeah, it's just how it goes. So,
yeah.
All right. Appreciate you coming on. Probably, try to have you on maybe sometime during the season or whatever, maybe Purdue MSU matchup. So appreciate you coming on.
If Michigan State wins, invite me on. Don't just invite me on when we lose. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
You.
All right. Appreciate it. See you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. That was Carter Elliott talking some MSU. Still have 2 teams left. We're going to just jump straight into Minnesota or Maryland. I'll let you pick, Craig.
Let's do Maryland. I think there's more to talk about there with Maryland.
All right, we'll talk about Maryland. 22-13 last year, 11-9 in the Big Ten. Second round exit against an Alabama team. They were 36th in offense, 32nd in defense, and just an interesting split for them. They had 1 home loss all year, in which they just got absolutely pummeled by UCLA. Went undefeated at home in the Big Ten, and then they only won like 3 road games. They went 2-6 in games decided by 5 points or less. That's just kind of an interesting thing for me. Key losses. This is a team that's going to seem a little bit different for sure. They lose Hakeem Hart, Don Carey, Patrick Emilian, Ike Cornish, Ian Martinez, and then also Pablo DeZuba and Arnaud Rivas, who both haven't really played. They bring in 4 freshmen and 3 transfers. The freshmen, Deshaun Harris-Smith, Jamie Kaiser, Jonathan Lamoth, and Braden Pierce. Harris-Smith is kind of being talked about as a all Big Ten freshman. He was the highest ranked guy. Transfers, they bring in a familiar face from Indiana and Jordan Geronimo. And then they also bring in a 6'11" big and Matty Traore, and a point guard in Chance Stevens, who did, unfortunately, I forget the exact injury off the top of my head, but I don't think he'll be playing for most likely most of the year. I think it was an Achilles or something like that, which is unfortunate to hear. But yeah, that's where they're at. This is a team that's brings back Jameer Young, bring back Dante Scott and Julian Reese, who's going to be pretty much the foundation for this team. Year 2 of Kevin Willard coaching at Maryland, and I guess that's the first question: is what do you buy him as a coach? Like, is 22-13, is that abnormal? Is that kind of where Maryland should be? I think this is an interesting team, right? Like, they win all their home games, they lose all their road games. Like, is that going to happen again? What are your just kind of initial thoughts before we really dive in?
I don't know whether I've seen enough to say I buy in or don't buy in terms of Kevin Willard. But, to me, as we were approaching tonight, I was like, man, it's really interesting, comparing records and comparing recruiting classes between Maryland, Michigan State. And yet kind of where people view these 2 teams for next year are miles and miles apart. And just like in my head, I'm like, they bring Young, Reese, and Scott back. So like, how is Maryland not getting talked about more? And then when you really start looking at that roster, nobody that they bring back averaged more than 6 points a game beyond those 3 guys. And it dips real fast. And even in the transfers, like there are 3 transfers that come in, 6 points a game for Loyola Marymount, 4.2 for Indiana, and 1.4 for New Mexico State. Like, that's not necessarily like big time impact transfers in terms of putting points up. And this is a team that really struggled to score the ball last year, especially on the road. So I guess really quickly, I was like, that's why people aren't talking about it more, because beyond those 3, and those 3 are studs in my mind. Jameer Young, maybe, a top 3 guard in the league next year, point guard or shooting guard. Guy's just a dog. I think he can score in multiple ways, mid-range, getting to the rim, hitting threes, even though he didn't shoot a real high percentage. He's super streaky from 3 and can get going. And I don't think Julian Reese gets talked about enough in terms of big men in the Big Ten. I think next year he'll be one of the top, 3 or 4 big men in terms of centers in the Big Ten. So they've got a core of 3. It's just, I don't think we have any idea what's going to be around them. Now that incoming class is 4th in the Big Ten in terms of freshmen, and 18th. It's a top 20 class overall. I think they're going to have to see some minutes and have to contribute really quickly if this team's going to be a top 5 Big Ten team.
Yeah, I would expect, as of right now, Deshaun Harris-Smith to probably start at the 2 guard. Like you said, I think you nailed it. This core 3 of Jameer Young, Julian Reese, Dante Scott is I'd put it up with most cores in the Big Ten. But what else are they going to get? If Harris-Smith plays at a freshman of the year level, then this is a team that could slide into a 7-8 seed in the tourney and be maybe 5 in the Big Ten or 4 in the Big Ten, something like that. Before we really get in, I feel like Jameer Young's getting disrespected a little bit. Like I was on the Jameer Young train last year. I had him first team all Big Ten. I wasn't mad that Bowie was over it by any means. But for me personally, I think people are like almost tiering them, like Bowie and Hoggard way above Young. I don't think that's the case. I think Young's probably Hoggard maybe is a better defender than them, but Young's better defensively than Bowie. Bowie does something, has a little bit more offensively that he has to do for sure. But Young shot 38% from 3 in Big Ten play. Like you said, it's streaky. He shot 32% from the year. In college, he was 37, 35, and 34%. If Maryland's going to be good, Jameer Young has to be first team all Big Ten level. Like there's just no way around it. And then Julian Reese has to probably be second or third, team. When you look across the Big Ten, obviously Zach Edey is the best player, best center in the Big Ten. After that, though, it's kind of after the year of the big, right? The year of the big was last year.
Right.
This year, just not so much. Like Julian Reese has a legitimate case, and probably coming into the season, I'd put him as the second best center. I think he needs to produce at that level. You saw him bump up to
over Cliff.
Okay, so maybe 3. It's 2 or 3.
Okay. Yeah.
I forgot Cliff came back for a second.
Yeah. Don't disrespect the Rutgers people. Yeah. Rutgers fans like me, so don't disrespect them.
No. So number 3, you're right. I'd put him 3 behind Amori. But he went to 11.4 points, 7.2 boards, 1.2 blocks last year. He's going to probably have to have a little bit of higher usage, I would think. Just even Young will have to have a little bit of higher. Scott's probably the X factor, and if he can produce a little bit more efficiently, then I think they legit can come to that next level. But I really, really like their core. I think those 3 are really, really talented, and then it's like we said, it's literally just going to come down to who can contribute elsewhere. My concern is the shooting still. They were 238th in 3-point percentage last year at 32.8%. They don't bring in a ton of shooting. Harris-Smith isn't really a shooter. Kaiser isn't a shooter. Lamoth is an elite shooter. So he is the one that comes in and I think has legitimate 3-and-D potential. But, aside from that, like there isn't a ton of shooting. So that's the biggest concern for me.
You have to think that's why they brought Chance Stevens in from Loyola Marymount, though, because that dude, he played like 11 minutes a game, or what was it? He played,
I think, like
17 minutes a game and shot 5 threes per game in 17 minutes.
Yep.
Like that is hunting your shot. And he shot 37%. So yep. I mean, you look at that and think, okay, he's getting brought in to, just put up threes, be an outside shooter.
Which is why the injury stinks so much. Like he was going to be that shooter for him, and now he's the guy that's probably out for the year.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
There's no official timetable. I was doing a little bit of research, and they haven't ruled him out for the year, but definitely not anytime in 2023 he'll be back.
Gotcha.
But yeah, where do you want to go with this team? Like I think offensively, we kind of talked about it. It's going to be Young, Scott, Reese. Defensively, though, this was a solid team. Pressed a ton. They pressed 25% of the time, which was top like 25 or something like that for most in the country. Do you think the defense holds up again? They were top 30? Yeah, top number 32 in defense last year.
I think when you look at the freshmen and well, before we get to that real quick, another thing about Jameer Young, like that's crazy to me is he had almost a 30% usage rate last year and his turnover percentage was still like 12.5, 13%. Whereas when you look at like Hogard, it's up in the 17th percentile, and some other guards are even higher than that in the Big Ten that we consider elite guards. So it's crazy to me that his turnover percentage is that low for as much time as he's on ball, and how high his usage rate is. But when we look at the 4 guys coming in, to me, at least 3 of those immediately, again, just hit me as Kevin Willard guys, like super athletic, pretty long, super quick guys that are built and ready to go right out of the gate in terms of their body. Not going to need a ton of time in the weight room to match the physicality of the Big Ten. I kind of put the same question on all 3 of those guys in terms of like, how's their skill going to translate? Just in terms of offensive skill, do they have enough shooting skill, passing skill, that type of stuff? Don't know that it's super polished yet. Even with the little bit that I watched on Deshaun Harris-Smith, like seemed like an athletic guy that used his physicality and just athleticism to get to the rim, but maybe didn't have that super spot polish game to find different ways and not just overpower people. But to me, that's Kevin Willard guys for the most part, guys that are super physical, super athletic, may not be the prettiest offensively. May not be the prettiest shooter, but they're going to press up. They're going to play hard defense. They're going to be athletic, and they're going to use that athleticism to find ways to score enough.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I think if this team reaches their whatever their ceiling is, like it's coming defensively. It's going to be forcing more turnovers. It's going to be, when they played Purdue last year, they just pressed, and then Purdue couldn't do anything really. And I don't even know if the press caused many turnovers. It was just Purdue was out of sorts in the half court. Maryland goes on a hot streak, and it just blew the game wide open. I think they have that potential. It's just, like when you look at their depth, though, like their backup bigs, right? We're just saying Scott and Reese are starting. Their backup bigs are Caleb Swanson-Roger, Braden Pierce, and Matty Traore, who are none of them have proven at the Big Ten level. Traore is more of a flyer, kind of higher upside. Like he's longer, has some dribbling capabilities and things like that. So it's like, okay, if this guy hits, he's going to be really good. We didn't see much from Swanson-Roger, and Braden Pierce is kind of in that ED mold coming into college of a 7 foot plus dude that's only played for a few years. There's definitely potential. Don't know how much that really comes out this year, though, just being his first year at this high of a level. But yeah, if Deshaun Harris-Smith is this good, or even Lamont, I'm pretty high on Lamont because I think his shooting is going to be so important. Then it'll be good. I don't know exactly where Geronimo fits. I think he was probably used best as a 4 last year at IU. And is he sharing the floor with Donta Scott? If the shooting improves, then sure, but that's the one concern I have. So I just don't quite know where he fits because he almost has to play the 3 for them, but I don't know if that fits.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And I just put, can he get back to where he was once? Because at one point in time, there was a lot of, hope for what Jordan Geronimo could be at IU. And then it just seemed like things kind of went off the rails and he never got back there, kind of fell out of favor in terms of the rotation. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think personally, just the type of player is, maybe he fits better with Willard than he did at IU, and maybe he gets more usage and more run. He's going to have to with this team. They're going to have to find a way to use him because they just don't have a ton of depth at all, really. And like you said, Lamoth, really good shooter. To me, like his release is really low. Like he brings the ball way low when he comes into that. Like he's swinging it way past his hip. And I always question those guys that bring that ball down way low. Like, how's that going to translate at the Big Ten level with Big Ten defenders in your face? Are you going to be able to get it off consistently? And unless they're just leaving you open. And with him, I think the tape's going to be out there to show that he's a high percentage shooter. So people are going to be out on him. So I question that a little bit. I understand why you're high on him from watching him. I just thought that the way his shot and his release to me are a little bit funny, but no,
he had 16
I'm with you.
Game. Not that it matters 16? Too much, but he made 16 threes in a game last year.
That's a lot of threes. That's a lot of threes.
But like you said, it does have to
take that many. Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. For sure.
I don't really have anything else on them. I think we talked it through. It's the depth is the key thing. We've mentioned it. I've mentioned it 5 times now. So you got anything else?
I guess the one thing the kid from New Mexico State, how do you say his last name?
Traore.
Yeah. Man, like when I just first clicked on him, I'm like, that is a big dude that's agile.
Yeah.
Like in terms of just his feet, when he's on the run, he was catching passes at 6'11". He was kind of making a little Euro step, and like that guy is agile and light on his feet. And I'm like, why didn't that guy get more run at New Mexico State than he got? Like, I would think just in terms of, I understand why people would be high on him, and just even looking at that, I was like, why is Kevin Willard taking a guy that played 1.4 minutes at New Mexico State? And then you watch the tape, and you're like, oh. Like that guy could have crazy upside if he puts the pieces together, just in terms of how light he is on his feet at that type of size and what he can do catching the ball on the run and that type of stuff from that position.
And he'll be a sophomore. So like you have 3 years of him. I think
Right.
he was a 3-star as a prospect. So I thought he was a 4-star for some reason. But yeah, no, I think there's a ton of upside. Like just dude's 6'11", moves super, super well. I like the pickup. I would have liked to pick up more if they had a true backup big, like somewhat proven one. But I get it. You got to swing. You got to look past this year as well a little bit when you're recruiting and stuff. So I totally get that. Appreciate you, Lucas, hopping in. He said he has to head out, but finish up Maryland ceiling floor. I'll let you go first because, yeah,
I'm still when I first did it, I said floor 8, ceiling 3. I think the floor could maybe dip lower. I still think they're a team just because of those 3 guys on top that if they can find enough around it. I mean, I could see those 3 guys putting up between them, 45, 50 points a night pretty easily. So you got to go out and get another 20 points from the rest of your team. So I could still see them just playing hard-nosed D, turning people over, figuring out a way to score enough and finishing third. I maybe my floor should be a little bit lower with this team the more we talk through it. But I originally put there's 6 teams I have there 3 through 8, and they're one of those 6.
I have them. I'm pretty sure I'm going to buy into Maryland. I would say ceiling 3, floor 7. I think this will be a top half of the team or top half of the league team. I'm super high on Jahmir Young too, and I think Reese takes another jump, becomes a legitimate top 3 big in the Big Ten. So
yeah, that's one of the things I was going to say about him is like when we talk freshman to sophomore level jump, that to me that's kind of a guard wing thing. We've seen centers progressively just the skill development at 7 foot is different than skill development at 6'2" in terms of the time that it takes. And I think with big men, you see them progress through all 4 years and gain more incrementally necessarily than big jumps like you see with guards adjusting to the Big Ten sometimes. So I'm with you. I think he takes another pretty sizable jump.
Yep. No, I agree. So we'll move on to last team, also the team that was last in the Big Ten last year in Minnesota. 9-22 overall, 2-17 in Big Ten play. Interestingly enough, they were 6-5 in games decided by 5 points or less, which I thought was interesting. Which basically meant like they either won close games or they just got blown out. Nothing really went right for them. 235th in offense, 188th in defense. They lose Jamison Battle, Talon Cooper, Trayton Thompson, Jaden Henley, which I think is the biggest loss out of the 5 just for the future of the program, and then Torres Samuels. They add in Cameron Christie, Kristupops, Canis. I should have practiced that before. Mike Mitchell Jr., Jack Wilson, and Elijah Hawkins. Cameron Christie I'm high on, just straight up as a freshman. If Minnesota can get to 12th in the Big Ten, I think it's probably because he makes the all Big Ten freshman team. I'm bought in on him as a scorer. I don't think Canis is going to be doing too much this year. He's from
Lithuania.
One of those.
Your Twitter thread.
No, Iceland's Penn State. Iceland was Penn State.
Yep.
Yeah, Lithuania. You were right. Mike Mitchell Jr. and Elijah Hawkins are going to be the 2 point guards for Minnesota this year. Both really good shooters, both really good passers, or solid facilitators. So that'll be interesting. Jack Wilson is a 7-foot dude that can help develop Pharrell Payne in practice and eat minutes, I guess, as a backup 5. he's kind of weird because he like started in football, but has moved to basketball some, but like hasn't really played in 2 years. But I think he's just honestly brought in to eat some minutes against like Edie and such. So I don't know if I don't think this Minnesota team will be that good. I am excited to watch them. I'm going to be honest. Like, I've really bought into Christie. I'm interested to see what this Mitchell Hawkins backcourt does. And then Pharrell Payne. If Julian Reese isn't a top 3 big this year, I think it's because Pharrell Payne makes that jump. I don't know if you were there, but that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not saying he will be, but I am excited to see where he goes this year.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it just helps that there's a little bit more. I mean, I know they still lost quite a few people, but to me, there's just a little bit more continuity with this team than Minnesota's experienced lately, right? You get your top scorer back. You get Payne back at 8 points a game. You get Joseph back at 7.4 a game, Carrington at 6 points a game. Like, to me, there's just a little bit more continuity there than maybe there has been in the last couple of years. And then you bring in a couple of elite shooters that can bang away from 3. Now, you talked about them both being elite passers. One of them averages 4 turnovers a game. The other one averages 3 turnovers a game.
I said it, and then I tried to backtrack like good facilitators because I do think they force a bunch as well.
Yeah, that scares me a little bit because that's, against whatever league Howard is in. Was that the MEAC or not sure?
Yeah.
And Pepperdine is in, averaging 4 and 3 turnovers a game, and then you bring him into the Big Ten with bigger, longer, more athletic defenders. Really wonder. I guess they're going to have to adjust in terms of what type of passes that they make. And I thought Mitchell, just watching the film, made some really electric passes, Braden Smith-like passes, I guess. But you can see how that probably also leads to some turnovers at some points too. But like you said, both really good shooters. And at times last year, I thought Minnesota just struggled to find ways to score the ball. So you got some guys that can chuck it from outside, that can shoot a really high percentage from that standpoint. I do wonder Hawkins just, like, is he too slight a build for the Big Ten? He just looks little. I mean, Tyson Walker's getting it done, but to me, he looks that size or smaller just in terms of build. So just wonder how he'll hold up in the Big Ten from that standpoint, but you never know.
Yeah, I think the 3-point shooting you mentioned, they were 261st, isn't great. They just weren't good really anywhere. 228th in 2-point percentage. They were last in free throw percentage in the country, which is fun. Honestly, going 6-5 in close games with the worst free throw percentage in the country is kind of impressive. Like, it really is. Yeah, I'm interested to see. I'm hoping that the offense just has a little more, like you said, continuity, a little more just rhythm. I felt like it was was really stagnant last year, and they played this super slow pace. They were 320th in offensive pace, and in the 2 years that Ben Johnson's there, that's kind of been their MO, is just really slow down, grind out games. Hasn't worked out too well. I'm hoping that with, even if Hawkins and Mitchell, I'd almost just rather see I'm not brought into Chris Tupas Canis yet. She's the dude from Lithuania. I'm hoping that with Mitchell, Hawkins, you almost Johnson so much less and be like, hey, you're going to have 4 turnovers a game, and we're just going to live with it. Just run a little bit. Start creating for others. Right. See what we can actually get from there. Because I think it just was. I think the offense got so bogged down, and it's just tough. And then now bad shots lead to runouts, and now other teams scoring and things like that. And now their defense can't set up. The interesting guy on this team, besides Pharrell Payne for me, is Darson Garcia, just in the fact that, like, he's put up good numbers, or pretty solid numbers. He's interesting of, like, maybe he could be like a top 15 player in the conference, but also, like, is he only doing that because he's on Minnesota last year? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on him?
I mean, I think he's a good player. Whether he's going to make an all Big Ten team or not, I don't know. But I don't know that he's good enough to be your number one guy and be top 4 in the Big Ten. But there's plenty of people that I think he still makes the starting lineup on pretty easily from that position in the Big Ten. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. certainly talented, but obviously Minnesota's just lacking for dudes that are really high level right now. So he's going to see that. But at the same time, I'm way higher on Battle than you are. We talked about that last time we did this in regards to Ohio State. So like for me, that Garcia kind of took that mantle from Battle a little bit and became more of the guy as the season progressed. I think that does speak some volume, but I've got to say, we've gone through 7 teams now. Yep. Christie jumped off the tape to me probably as I would say of all the incoming freshmen we've watched, I would have him in my top 3. And I went back and checked his ranking because I was like, I don't even think he was top 100. I went back and checked his ranking. I was like 130s. And I get, right? So a lot of those rankings are where they think people will end up. And a lot of that is just size, athleticism, that sort of stuff. And they figure eventually they're going to catch up skill-wise. But Christie's a 6'5" shooting guard. Like, to me, he's plenty big enough. He's not like way playing above the rim or super athletic, but he has mid-range. He shoots from 3. It's silky smooth. He shoots on the move. He shoots off the dribble. He shoots off the catch. Like, could not believe he was ranked, not ranked in the top 100, I guess, from watching what I did. And I think he'll come in right away. I honestly, because of the team that he's going to be playing on, I could see him making, all Big Ten freshman team just with the skill that he has and the usage rate that he's going to get on this team right away.
Yeah, I assume he starts at the 2 from day one. I'm with you. I really, really, really like the scoring, and I think it does translate. He seemed comfortable playing off ball, which is going to be big if Hawkins and Mitchell even sort of hit where they are. Maybe they have the turnovers, but they are getting 5 assists a game, whatever it is. Christie's going to be a big beneficiary of that. He's comfortable getting to his pull-up. Like you said, 6'5", brother of Max Christie, former MSU player, currently, I think he's still in the Lakers. I don't actually know where he's at now.
Yeah, he's playing Summer League right now.
Summer League, yeah. So, I'm pretty high on him too. I'm with you. Like, I would not be shocked if he makes the Big Ten freshman team. I don't have like my official team yet. That'll come out in a couple months, but he's going to be in my top 6 or 7 without a doubt. And wouldn't be shocked if he ends up even higher than that.
Well, I just think, a lot of the film that we watch of these guys, I'm like, man, that guy's really athletic. He's really fast. He can really jump, whatever. But the skill level's not necessarily there yet. And it may take a year or two for like the basketball skill to catch up with the athleticism, the size, and all the physicality things. And for me, Christie has that skill right now.
Are you shocked if
plug and let him go?
Are you shocked if he has a better year than Essien last year?
Probably not. No.
At least from an individual standpoint, not a
right.
Standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I'm not saying it will happen, but I wouldn't be shocked either.
But he's a little bit more athletic than Essien, don't you think? Or not?
I mean, yeah. And what was Essien ranked? Like, wasn't he in like the 200s or something like that?
Yeah.
So
I don't think Purdue or IU even gave him a sniff. So
yeah. Which,
unfortunately,
that's how it goes. And then he goes to Wisconsin, finds a good fit, and there he is. If you want, we talked about Wisconsin in the last one. So, right?
Yeah.
We talked about Wisconsin.
Did we? Yes, we talked Wisconsin.
Yes, we did. If you want to find out more about Wisconsin, then go to the previous show. It's linked in the description. You can go check that out after we're done here, which we're about to wrap up because I don't really have anything else on Minnesota.
We didn't do floor ceiling yet.
Yeah, I know that. But before we get to that, did you have anything
What's your
else?
floor, Joe?
14th.
Me too. What's your ceiling?
Cool. What is my ceiling? What teams could they be better than? They could be better. Ceiling's probably 11 for me. I don't think I can get them to 10. I don't think I can get them that first round bye. Yeah, I would go ceiling 11. What about you?
13.
Okay. It's fair. Maybe, honestly, not
I've got
like
2 spots. I've got floor 14 and ceiling 13 because, I don't know. I think Nebraska is going to be pretty decent this year relative to Nebraska.
Yeah.
So
I'm changing my ceiling to 12th. Yeah. Cool. Because I'm thinking through all the teams and there's only 2 that I can realistically in my head right now be like, yeah, I see how they could be better than them. So
Penn State and who?
Iowa.
Okay.
I think I had Iowa's floor as like third. They were in the previous show too. I had their floor, I think.
Yeah.
No, I might have had their floor like 12th. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have official rankings and preseason stuff, all that closer to the actual start date of season, especially as, half the league still has one at least roster spot open, couple with multiple guys open. So do you have anything else, just period? Any of these teams, anything wrapping up?
No, not really. I think like both you and I said, it's just a little interesting to me. We really didn't get into it too much. I kind of posed the question to Carter, but like the hype buy-in on Michigan State is just, there's not a lot of freshman to sophomore level jump there, where you expect huge gains from guys that are going to be major scoring contributors. So I am just like, I'm there with everybody in terms of, I think that can be a top 2 Big Ten team. I think it can be a Final Four team, but there's also a piece of me that's like, but where's the big jump coming from? You know what I mean? Like, where exactly is that coming from? And if they still, with the roster that they have, if they match up against, a big time center, do they have enough to get around a team with that? Because their centers scored 8 points on us total. All 3 guys that played the post scored 8 points against us total, and I think Zach scored 68 in 2 games. So And I mean, that's the National Player of the Year, but still, they're going to struggle against teams with dominant big men.
Yep. Unless one of these bigs really pop, and I think that's like the biggest thing that you can say about it is, I see scenarios where they have, depending on what you want to count for Hall, I guess he's more of a 4, but there are other bigs of Cooper, Sissoko, Booker, Kohler. I think like when you look at Maryland, right, like their bigs of Reese, Pierce, Traore, like realistically, I don't see how like Pierce really pops this year. Maybe Traore can, but most likely not. Like, I at least think there's scenarios where it's like, okay, Cooper is a good anchor. Sissoko, we saw flashes of it last year. Kohler maybe at some point, maybe not next year, but eventually could be that more go-to post scorer for them. And then we hit on Booker, but I agree. Like they do have to prove it. And that will be one of their weaker spots. So,
but 2 of those guys you said are 6'9", and like the 2 better ones. So like they can be really good, but they're still 6'9".
Who's the 2 better ones?
Huh?
Who's the 2 better ones?
I guess the 2 that played more, right? Sissoko and
Cooper.
Well, I'm thinking Sissoko and Cooper, right? Are the 2 that are 6'9", right? Yeah,
I think so. But so we're good. Nothing else.
Or no, Kohler's 6'9". My bad.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm good. Looking forward to the next one. It's going to get a little dicier.
Yeah, for sure. Kraig, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you on all sorts of the socials?
Oh, geez. Yeah. You can join Boiler Diehards on Facebook. Over, I think, 12,000 people, Purdue fans in that group right now. Just search us on Facebook groups and we'll add you there. K Bowers 34, Kraig Bowers 34 on Twitter. Joe, you put me on the spot. I don't have all this pulled up. And on Threads, I do know this because I just did this last night. KS Bowers 77 on Threads.
There you go. Find all of his stuff here or there on the various platforms. You can follow me on Twitter and Threads at Joe Jackson CBB. Made sure to keep that the same for simplicity. Also, just for anybody that is listening, if you guys want to go subscribe to starting a YouTube channel for Feed the Post, just look up youtube.com /at Feed the Post or whatever. First video is coming out Monday. Plan is for 2 a week for basically the next 4 months. So would appreciate anybody subscribing there. First video coming out Monday. And then we'll be back. We don't have a set date for our next show on this for next Big Ten preview, but I would assume within 2 weeks or whatever like that, we'll have kind of the next set of teams. Plan is to do 2 more Big Ten shows, and then we'll do like a Purdue centric show. We'll probably do a couple throughout September and October where we focus more on Purdue and less on the rest of the Big Ten. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Like I said, we'll be back in a couple weeks with the next one.